Hello Raptors fans, and welcome to Raptors Report. Today we'll be looking at training camp, potential starting lineups, and other predictions about the upcoming season. Let's jump right in. Training camp is underway and preseason games will have started once this video has been published. I, for one, am extremely excited to once again be able to watch my favorite team play my favorite sport, and I'm sure that if you're watching this video, you're probably feeling the same way. One of the most interesting parts of this time of year are the new faces, new stories, and the exciting battle for the final spots on the roster. Now, I've spoken at length about some of the new additions to the team, like Otto Porter Jr. and Christian Koloko, but there are some other interesting guys who deserve a mention, and also some notable absences from last year's team. One of the moderate success stories from the last two seasons was Yuta Watanabe, who impressed fans with his tough, athletic defense, and for a while had a respectable three-point shot that demanded defensive attention. Unfortunately for Raptors fans and Yuta, he dealt with injury issues, and his three-point shooting, which looked sharp earlier in his stint with the Raptors, fell off the face of the earth. He's now in training camp with the Brooklyn Nets, and I wish him success there. Mikhailik is another notable player who will not be with the Raptors this season, as the final year of his 2-year contract was bought out by the team to make room for other players. At the time, I thought that Svi was a good value signing, and while it's true that his minimum deal is not a huge burden for the team moving forward, his play on the court was very lacking, especially in the shooting department, which was the reason that the Raptors acquired him in the first place. He is now on the Knicks training camp roster, and I also wish him the best. Now let's get to the exciting stuff. The additions! Oh yeah, Bo Cruz is a Raptor. While it's obviously cool that the Raptors have a literal movie star on their team, the coolness will probably wear off extremely quickly if he stinks it up as a Raptor. Thankfully, if you watched Eurobasket this summer or even saw the highlights, Juancho and his twin brother Willie showed out, with Juancho winning the Finals MVP against France with a sizzling shooting performance, and his brother Willie winning the MVP of the whole tournament. Nick Nurse, in his media day appearance, summed up what Juancho brings to the team, which is three-point shooting, size, and, quote, knowing how to play the game. I'd say that that's a fair assessment of Juancho, who at 6'9" with a 7-foot wingspan certainly looks like a player that the Raptors would be interested in. I think everything boils down to his ability to knock down three-point shots, as I expect that that will be his primary role on the team off of the bench. As he showed in the Eurobasket Finals, he certainly has the ability to hit perimeter shots, but in the NBA to date, that ability has waxed and waned. Juancho signed a guaranteed 1-year minimum contract with the Raptors, which means that it is likely he will make the final team. It should be interesting to see if he has what it takes to grab some bench minutes this season. Another new guy is Ron Harper Jr., who is the son of 5-time NBA champion Ron Harper Sr., who was a key bench player for the 90s Bulls dynasty. Harper Jr. played 4 years at Rutgers University and went undrafted in the 2022 NBA draft, before being signed by the Raptors on a 2-way deal, which makes him eligible to play for the 905 as well as the main team. It's not really surprising that the Raptors were interested in Harper, because he's one of those multi-positional players with a bunch of atypical skills. And while he's only 6'6", surprise, he has a massive 7'2" wingspan. He's built like a human bowling ball, which helps him absorb contact and finish around the rim, despite not being an incredible athlete. Harper has shown a marked improvement in his jump shot, finishing his senior year shooting 40% from beyond the arc, and he also boasts a pretty developed scoring package as well, although it remains to be seen whether it will work against NBA caliber athletes. It's pretty clear that the Raptors brought Ron Harper Jr. in to groom him into a potential 3-and-D role player with the ability to cover multiple positions. Keep your eye on him. Next up is Jeff Dowton, who is also signed to a 2-way deal. Dowton is a guy that walked onto the Raptors Summer League team and made some waves with his fantastic shooting and playmaking. In his rookie season last year, he bounced between the G League and various NBA teams, but didn't make much of an impression. Jeff Dowton had a fantastic preseason game for the Raptors versus the Boston Celtics. Along with the other third-string players, he led the Raptors back from a 15-point deficit and tied the game with 10 seconds left to send it to overtime. He was able to get to the basket multiple times during the game and had what looked like a nice scoring package overall. It was an impressive performance. Dowton is a 6'3" point guard who, like many other players on the Raptors, is more of a jack of all trades rather than a guy who excels in any particular area, although I noticed that he does have a very explosive first step, which is an important trait for scorers at the NBA level. If he can recapture the energy and exciting play he showed in the Summer League, he could have a shot to make the roster, which lacks guard depth. The last player that we'll be discussing today is Josh Jackson. Josh Jackson was the 4th overall pick in the 2017 NBA draft by the Phoenix Suns, and the fact that he's on a partially guaranteed deal competing with rookies for a spot on an NBA roster tells you all you need to know about how his career has gone thus far. Now, it's easy to pile onto the young players who don't live up to the pre-draft hype, but in my opinion, a ton of the issue stems from the organizations who drafted them, with many of them being drafted too high due to poor scouting and then not properly developed on top of that. The Suns, in particular, have a pretty rotten track record with young players. A recent example of a success story featuring a former high draft pick and the Raptors is 2015's 8th overall pick, Stanley Johnson, who was brought in as a reclamation project after being abandoned by the Pistons. It was pretty clear that Johnson was mismanaged by the Pistons, and after a few years in the Raptors development program, he came out on the other end, signed with the Lakers, and just had a pretty successful season as a role player. Josh Jackson has some similar strengths and weaknesses as the Stanimal. Despite having a ton of upside entering the league, Jackson has been brutally inefficient, mostly stemming from his inability to shoot the ball. Josh is a pretty good finisher around the rim, but he lacks the tools to get there from the perimeter. Jackson is a plus defender, with good length and foot speed for a 7'8" wing. With all of that said, like Stanley Johnson, Josh Jackson is still very young for a 5-year veteran, being only 25, so the Raptors will get to kick the tires and see if they can rebuild his shooting stroke and see if there's any upside left. It'll be interesting to see how training camp and preseason shake out. Who will end up making the final roster and who will fall short? Should be exciting to watch. And that's this week's episode. What are your thoughts on the new additions to the team? Who do you think nabs the final few roster spots? Let me know here in the comments and also on Twitter, where you can reach me at RapsReport. Please subscribe and thumbs up the video if you enjoyed the content, and as always, thanks for tuning in to Raptors Report, your source for in-depth Raptors content.